Germany versus the USSR. Introduction. Hitler had always used scapegoats, or in other words, blamed others, for Germany's problems after World War I. England and France, with their Treaty of Versailles, were frequent targets of Hitler's rage and actions. By the fall of 1940, Hitler had defeated Poland, Holland, Norway, Denmark, Belgium, and France with the spectacular success of his Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. England's army had been defeated and had to escape back across the English Channel from Dunkirk, France. Germany's mighty air force was attacking a much weaker England from the air. At this point, Hitler decided it was time to go after another scapegoat, the communists. Hitler had three main reasons for attacking the Soviet Union. Pay attention to the following clips for the answers to the questions on your sheet. Reason number 1. From your geographic knowledge, you know that Germany is a fairly large country in Europe, but their population had been growing for hundreds of years. This means that cities and towns kept getting larger, and the space between them for farms kept getting smaller. Adolf Hitler yearned for more open space for his German people. He found that space by simply looking at a map. The Soviet Union was the largest nation in the world. In Russia, Hitler could get all the Lebensraum, or living space, that he needed from the endless Russian steppe. Steppe land is a very large, flat piece of land in Russia that are great for farming.
As the Lightning War became a lengthy war, Hitler was forced to refocus his economic and military strategy. His aim in the East was twofold: to secure the vast agricultural wealth of the Ukraine, ultimately populating it with German settlers, oil, one of the most vulnerable points in the war economy of the Third Reich. Germany had a major underlying weakness. She had no oil resources of her own, only a small but rapidly growing synthetic oil industry. The bulk of Germany's oil came from Romania, Hungary, and the Soviet Union. And to lay his hands on the extractive resources of the enemy, particularly the coal, metal, and above all, the oil-bearing regions of southern Russia. Hitler's plans for the summer of 1942, codenamed Operation Blue, combined a drive on the Soviet oil fields in the Transcaucasus, accompanied by thrusts through the Mediterranean and North Africa to the Middle East.
Reason number 3. Hitler had always hated the communists. They were the Nazi Party's main rivals for power in Germany. The Soviet Union was the only communist nation on planet Earth, and because of that, Hitler hated the Soviet Union. Hitler's Germany and Stalin's Soviet Union had signed a non-aggression pact in 1939 because both Hitler and Stalin wanted time to get stronger. They both knew Nazi Germany and the Communist Soviet Union would go to war eventually. Hitler was ready first, and he looked forward to exterminating the idea of communism and destroying the Communist Soviet Union.
Operation Blue opened with sweeping victories on the Russian steppe. The setback of the winter of 1941 seemed a thing of the past. In the south, the panzers surged forward as they had done a year before. The German Army Group A raced towards the oil-rich Transcaucasus.
These movies were shot by German troops during their Blitzkrieg-type warfare in the Soviet Union. They used the speed of their tanks and planes to defeat much larger Soviet armies.
In June 1941, 135 divisions plunged deep into Russia on a 1,500-mile front that stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. Hitler expected a quick knockout blow within a matter of weeks. Like Napoleon's invasion more than a century before, everything went almost too well. The German infantry found it difficult to keep up with the tanks that smashed through the Russian defenses.
The Soviet Union, now known as Russia, was the largest nation on the planet. The amount of territory that Germany was going to attack was huge.
Hundreds of thousands of prisoners were taken. But the Soviets could afford to sacrifice both men and territory. They had plenty of both, and in their retreat, they gained time. As the Germans advanced, all they found were burning buildings, for the Russians had scorched the earth, depriving their enemy of winter quarters. But with the Germans at the very gates of Moscow, the deadly cold of a Russian winter arrived. Not having bothered to equip his troops with winter uniforms, Hitler was reluctantly forced to call a halt, with victory almost within his grasp.
By December 1941, Germany dominated Western Europe and the Balkans and stood at the gates of Moscow. Then the German advance stuck fast in the icy grip of the Russian winter. Hitler's army was halted by the climate. Moscow was to remain in Russian hands. Although it was not immediately apparent, this was one of the key turning points of the war.